Welcome back to my YouTube channel Learning Classes Social Science. Today I am going to explain about NCERT Class 8th History Chapter 3 Ruling the Countryside. So please like my video and press on the subscribe button and press on the bell icon so that you can get the notification of my further videos. Please do subscribe and do like, because your like and subscription will be very important for me. It will be very valuable for me. It will inspire me to make further videos. Let's begin the lesson. Welcome to my YouTube channel Learning Classes Social Science. Today I am going to explain Class 8 History Chapter 3 Ruling the Countryside. So in this chapter we will read how East India Company, after becoming Diwan of Bengal, earned its revenue by formulating some new methods of revenue collection. Okay, so let's begin our chapter. So you can see the first English ship sailed towards India on 18th century, right? Grant of Diwani and financial powers. See here, on 12th of August 1765, the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II granted the Diwani rights of Bengal to East India Company. So this was granted after the Battle of Buxar, which was fought in 1764, and this was signed by Shah Alam II and Robert Clive. Now the company became the chief financial administrator of Bengal. When the company achieved the right of Diwani, the responsibility of administering the land and organizing its revenue also came on the shoulders of the company. Not only this, it had to ensure that it could buy the products it needed at cheap rates, okay, and sell them at higher rates. Over the years, the company had to learn how to play safe in unknown land, right? That is India. Now here what I mean is that the company had to pacify those who were the early rulers of the countryside. It was not possible to eliminate them completely. So the company did the following. One, see, they organized its revenue resources to yield crops it needed, colonizing the countryside. So that's what we are going to study further in this chapter. See, though the company became the Diwan of Bengal provinces, I am talking about the revenue of the company, so still it was working as a trading company, right? It was not interested in setting up any regular system of assessment and collection of revenue. Their main aim was to increase revenues so that that they have plenty of money to buy cotton and silk, but the prices of the goods had increased so far. Now, as we have studied in previous chapters that earlier the company was depending upon the inflow of gold and silver, okay, from Britain for purchasing of goods, okay, in India. But after 1765 things changed, and now the revenues from Bengal was enough to purchase the goods in Bengal only. But here also big problem arose, right? See, what was this problem I am discussing? The economy of the Bengal faced a deep crisis because of the following. Now, how the economy of Bengal faced deep crisis, I am telling, right? See, artisans left Bengal. One, artisans left Bengal as they were being forced to, okay, sell their products at cheaper rate. That's why they left Bengal. One thing. Second, peasants were unable to pay the heavy dues laid on them, and agriculture was collapsing. With this, a big famine was devastated in Bengal, and this killed about 10 million population there, washing out about 1/3 of the population of Bengal. Now, as such incident took place which ruined the economy heavily, the company then felt the need in improving the agriculture. Okay, See, the most of the company officials were of the view that there was a great need of investing in land and agriculture. So in order to improve it, because the fall in agriculture was resulting into the great loss of revenue to the company, right? So therefore, after a long thinking, finally in 1793 the company took the decision of introducing the revenue collection method, that is known as permanent settlement. So according to this permanent settlement, right, the Rajas and Talukdars were now known as the Jamindars, and they had to collect the rent from peasants, and their rent was fixed and permanently by the Britishers. So the main aim behind this was that the Jamindar will only pay the fixed amount, okay, to the Britishers. So since the demand of the revenue will not increase and will invest into the improvement of agriculture to generate extra income for themselves, right? Themselves means here both Jamindars as well as the Britishers. Okay, so it did not go as per the plan of the following. Okay, problems arose. See what are the problems. Problems of permanent settlement. See, the permanent settlement, however, did not prove to be the useful as thought by the company. Soon, right? Soon it was discovered that the Jamindars were not investing in the improvement of land because the rent fixed was so high that it became impossible for the Jamindars to pay it off, right? So as a result, they were deprived of Jamindaris. So even the Jamindaris were also put on auction by the company, right? So meanwhile, something new was noticed by the company, that was, see, the situation was changing as the prices of the goods were increasing, and slowly but gradually the agriculture was also expanding. So this led to benefit of Jamindars, but for the company it was remained the same because the revenue was fixed. So even the Jamindars were not keen to invest in improvement of agriculture because they were gaining a lot without putting anything, okay, any effort in the form of the rent that they obtained from the peasants, right? So on the other hand, the cultivators found extremely oppressive as they had to pay high rent to Jamindars, okay, though they did not have ownership over the land that they worked on, right? Now that we know that the problems being faced by the company regarding generation of revenue, we should now move on to the solution it came up, right? We came up with. Okay, see what was the solution. Okay, by early 19th century, many of the company officials felt it was impossible for the company to survive on the fixed amount of rent that it was getting, because now the expenses of the company had increased. So they decided to develop a new method of revenue collection, that is known as Mahalwari system. See, in 1822 an Englishman called Holt Mackenzie felt that the village was an important social institution for North India, okay, North Indian society, and needed to be preserved. Therefore he developed a new method of revenue collection, that is known as Mahalwari system. Mahal means village. So in this system, following steps were taken. See what are the following steps were taken, right? Officers sent to different villages for inspection of land, and fields were measured, customs and rights of the people were recorded, and estimated revenue of each plot within the village was added up to calculate the revenue that each village mahal had to pay, right? The revenue was not permanently fixed, so it was to be revised periodically. Clear? So instead of Jamindars, the village headman was made responsible for collection of the revenues to, okay, for the company here. See, while Mahalwari system of revenue collection was introduced in the northern part of the country, so another method came into use in the southern part of the country. So this was famously known as Raitwari system, okay, or Monroe system. Let's know about Raitwari system or Monroe system. See, in southern part of India, the Britishers also felt that the permanent settlement method was not beneficial enough to do so. So Thomas Monroe, governor of Madras 1819 to 26, developed a new method of revenue collection known as Raitwari system, right? So now you can understand what is Raitwari system or Monroe system, right? This system was actually based on a method which was applied by Captain Alexander Reid, right? On a small scale in some of the areas which were owned by the company after defeating Tipu Sultan, right? So riots here refers to the cultivators. So as there was absence of zamindars in South India, both Reid and Monroe decided to directly deal with the riots. Riots means here cultivators, right? So who were tilling the land from generations. So under this, the field of riots were carefully measured and assessed. Clear, na? So now we know that three system of revenue collections were tried by the Britishers. Let's compare them. Let's compare them, right? Permanent settlement, Mahalwari settlement, and Raitwari system, right? See, the permanent settlement was introduced in the year 1793. Mahalwari system was introduced in the year 1833. Raitwari system was introduced in the year 1820. Clear? So in permanent settlement, revenue was fixed. Mahalwari settlement, revenue was not fixed. It was estimated. Okay, estimated revenue of each plot was added to the total revenue of the village. But in Raitwari system, revenue was not fixed. Each field was carefully measured and assessed. Clear? Next, see here, in permanent settlement, zamindars were ordered to collect the revenues. But in Mahalwari system, instead of zamindars, the revenue was collected by the village headman. But in Raitwari system, British only collected the revenue. See, permanent settlement was introduced in Bengal, Bihar and Odisha. But Mahalwari system was introduced in northwestern frontier, Punjab and Gangetic Valley. And Raitwari system was introduced in Madras, Bombay and Coorg, etc. right, in that area. See here, in permanent settlement, zamindars were the owner of the land. But in Mahalwari system, peasants were the owner of the land. And in Raitwari system, peasants were the owners. Clear? Okay, now we know that the difference between all the three system of revenue collection, okay, we know that the Raitwari system was also introduced by the Britishers, but soon a new problem arose. So what was that? Let's find out. See here, all was not well, right? So under the Raitwari system, peasants were charged with a very high rate of tax, right? So they started deserting the countryside as it became impossible for them to pay tax. Clear? See, they started deserting the countryside as it became impossible for them to pay tax, right? So many of the company officers were of the view that the new system of collection will help peasants in becoming rich. So, but this never happened. See, Britishers were not solely dependent on the revenue generated from Indian territories in the form of taxes only, right? But they also decided to use the crops of the country in order to earn profit in the trading business, right? So this we will study further. Clear? Now crops for Europe. See, by the late 18th century, the Britishers tried to expand the cultivation of opium and indigo in various parts of India. They also forced the cultivators to grow various other crops such as jute in Bengal, right, tea in Assam, sugarcane in United Provinces, wheat in Punjab, cotton in Maharashtra and Punjab, and rice in Madras. So basically, the more emphasis was laid in cultivation of indigo. But why was it so important to cultivate indigo? First of all, we should know what indigo is and why is it used, right? So basically, indigo is a plant from which blue powder is derived, and this is used to dye the clothes in blue, or as we say, the indigo color, right? See, indigo was so important because it can only be grown in tropical climate, okay, tropical climate. So climate of India was suitable for its growth, right? India was the main exporter of indigo, so it was of high demand in Europe, okay, because it gave rich blue color to be used for dyeing the clothes, right? See, in Europe, a plant named oud was cultivated, which was used for dyeing clothes, but the color that it gave was not so rich, resulting into the high demand of indigo in Europe, right? So one interesting fact about oud and indigo is that, see, the oud cultivators were so worried about the tough competition that we're facing because of indigo here, right? So they pressurized their government, respective governments, to ban the import of indigo. Clear? See, not only English, but the French in Caribbean island, the Portuguese in Brazil, the Spanish in Venezuela also started cultivating indigo plants, right? While the demand for indigo was increasing, its supply fell half between 1783 to 1789, 1783 to 1789, right? See, as there was less supply, the British dyers became keener to procure indigo, and at this point they turned to India to meet their demands, right? See, the demand for indigo was rising day by day in Europe. Clear? Therefore, the company decided to expand indigo cultivation in India. Okay, Bengal was the largest exporter of indigo to the Britain. So in 1810, about 95% of the indigo imported by Britain was from Bengal only, right? So as the indigo trade grew, many of the commercial agents and company officials started investing in the indigo business, right? As this was profitable business, right? So many Englishmen settled in India and became indigo planters. Clear? So even loans were granted by the company and the banks for indigo cultivation also. Okay, you can see the indigo color, right? Indigo print, kalamkari print, and okay, Morris cotton print. Now system of indigo cultivation. See how indigo was cultivated. So indigo was cultivated under two systems. One is niche cultivation, another one is Raite cultivation, right? Raite system. Okay, now come to the niche cultivation. See, in this system, the planters produce indigo on the land which was under this control, right? Either he was the owner or he had rented it for indigo cultivation, right? But the niche cultivators found it difficult to grow indigo as it required large fertile area, which was not easily available as most of the land was densely populated. Clear na? See, some problems with niche cultivation, right? See, indigo could only be cultivated on fertile lands, but these areas were densely populated and hence only small plots could be acquired. Okay, this made it difficult to expand the area under niche cultivation. Clear? Next, see, they attempted to lease in the land around the indigo factory. While doing so, they evicted the peasants from the area. Evicted means, you know, no? They displaced them, right? So peasants eviction always created a conflict and tension. Clear? See, next, see, a large plantation required a large number of workers. Clear? So even laborers were not available sometime as they were busy with the rice cultivation. So thus they were not interested in growing indigo anymore. Okay. Now come to Raite system. See, under this Raite system, the planters entered into contract with ryots. Planters entered into the contract with ryots or village headmen, right? Sometimes forcibly. According to this contract, 20%, 25% of the land was exclusively kept for the cultivation of indigo. 25% of the land was kept for the cultivation of indigo. Right. Now, see here, the planter used to provide the seeds and the drill to the farmer, and he in return had to take care of the plants. Clear? See, but soon the ryots realized that this system was not an easy one because they got trapped in the cycle of loans, right? Cycle of loans, okay, which were unending, and the income they received through the indigo plantation was also very meager, very less. See, even the fertility of the land deteriorated. The land became unfit for the growth of the rice after cultivation of indigo. So, as the system of indigo plantation was very oppressive, all the peasants became rebellion. So, come to the blue rebellion. See here what happened in that blue, why it is called blue rebellion, right? Blue means indigo, that's why it is called blue rebellion, right? See, in March 1859, a rebellion broke in Bengal. So many of the riots refused to pay rents to the planters. Not only this, they attack indigo factories. At some places, the village headmen who were forced to enter into a contract by the planters, so also supported this rebellion. Clear na? So peasants at some places thought that they would get support from the Britishers, but it was not so. As the Britishers became cautious after the revolt of 1857, so they brought military for safeguarding planters in the indigo districts. Clear? See, the riots refused to pay rents to the planters. They attacked indigo factories. They used to be armed with swords and spears, bows and arrows. Women also fought with pots, panda and kitchen implements, right? So those who worked for the planters were socially boycotted, right? And the gomastas were beaten up when they came to collect the rent, right? The Gomastas were the agents of the indigo planters. Clear? So in many villages, headmen mobilized the indigo peasants against the Lathials, right? The headmen were angry because they had been forced to sign indigo contracts. Some zamindars were angry with the increasing power of the planters and at being forced to give them land on a long leases. So some zamindars also supported the villagers in this revolt against the indigo planters. Clear? See, so after the revolt of 1857, the British government was worried about, right, the possibility of another popular rebellion. So when the news of indigo revolt spread, the lieutenant government toured the region in the winter of 1859. So this was seen as a sign of sympathy by the riots, right? So they began to believe that the British government would support them in their struggle. See here, when the rebellion spread, intellectuals from Calcutta rushed to the indigo districts. They began writing about the misery of the riots and the horror of the indigo system. Clear? See, that's why, see here, Queen Victoria ordered magistrate of Barasat, Ashley Eden, to issue a notice stating that wraiths would not be forced to enter into indigo contracts. Clear? So clearly you should remember, Queen Victoria ordered magistrate of Barasat, Ashley Eden, to issue a notice stating that wraiths would not be forced to enter into the contracts. So what it means? Now they are not forcing to do the indigo cultivation. Okay, if they want, then they can go for rice cultivation also. So in indigo commission, that's why an indigo commission was set up to look into the matter. The commission came up with the following conclusions. See here, see what are the conclusion I am telling. See, planters were found guilty. Planters were coercing, that is forcing the rights to enter into the contracts, and indigo cultivator was not profitable for riots, right? So the riots were asked to fulfill the existing contract, but they got the rights to refuse for indigo cultivation in future, right? Clear? See now, after the revolt, what happened? See, after the revolt, as the production of indigo came to an end in Bengal, planters shifted to Bihar. So there also they faced similar revolt known as Champaran revolt in year 1917, which was supported by Mahatma Gandhiji, right? See, the indigo production collapsed in Bengal after the revolt. The planters now shifted their operations to Bihar, and discovery of synthetic dyes in the late 19th century, okay, severely affected the business, but the planters managed to expand production. Okay, so when Mahatma Gandhiji returned from South Africa, the plight of indigo farmers in Champaran also was brought to his notice. Mahatma Gandhiji visited Champaran in 1719 and began the movement against the indigo planters. Clear? See, indigo. So here your lesson is finished. So please don't forget to like and subscribe my channel. So for your further videos, don't forget to click on the bell icon. Thank you.